Okay, picture this. The date is March 7th, 2026. We are exactly 1 week into Operation Epic Fury, and it is the most intense aerial conflict the world has seen in a generation. Now, on the surface, this looks like a stunning success for the United States. But I'm telling you, underneath all those headlines of military victory, there is a terrifying economic reality that could change the global balance of power forever. And you're going to want to stay to the end, because I'm going to reveal some truly shocking things in this deep dive. All right, let's get back to it.
So in just 96 hours, U.S. Central Command reports that 80% of Iran's most sophisticated air defense network has been completely neutralized. We're talking about their best stuff, including the Russian-made S-400s. I mean, from a tactical perspective, it's a masterpiece. But this number, this symbol of victory, it is deeply, deeply misleading.
Because getting to that 80% came at a cost that is just staggering. $5.7 billion. And that's not over a year or even a month. That's in just 4 days. And here's the kicker. That money wasn't spent leveling command centers or taking out some high-value targets. Nope. The vast majority of it was spent just shooting down swarms of cheap, mass-produced Iranian drones.
You see, the real crisis here, it's unfolding far from any front line. It's happening in the halls of Washington, D.C., and on the volatile floors of the global energy markets. A geopolitical shockwave has been set in motion, and the craziest part, its epicenter leads directly back to Russia.
So this forces us to completely reframe how we're looking at this conflict. This isn't your traditional war of territory or just sheer firepower. No, this is a war of economic attrition. It's a brutal math problem where America's greatest strength, its incredible technological superiority, is actually being turned into its greatest vulnerability.
The entire problem it boils down to this brutal, simple math. On one side, you have a U.S. interceptor missile. It's a marvel of engineering, and it costs $2 million a pop. On the other side, you've got an Iranian Shahed drone, which costs maybe $20,000 to make. We are literally firing a Ferrari to destroy a go-kart. And yeah, we can win every single one of those face-offs, but Iran can afford to lose 100 times over. This right here, this is the unsustainable math at the very heart of the crisis.
So faced with this completely unsustainable situation, the White House makes a dramatic move, a move that really amounts to an industrial gamble of historic proportions. An emergency summit was called, pulling in the absolute titans of the American defense industry for a meeting that would define the entire next phase of the war. These are the 4 people summoned directly to the Oval Office, the CEOs of the companies that are the backbone of what people call the arsenal of democracy. And trust me, they weren't there for a photo op. They were there to receive a directive that hasn't been issued in decades, put the country on a war footing.
Now, to really get the gravity of this request, you have to understand what they're being asked to build. The administration made it crystal clear. Exquisite class weaponry is no longer a luxury item for the Pentagon. It's a survival requirement. And these aren't just missiles. They are basically flying supercomputers, packed with advanced sensors, processors, and proprietary tech that takes years to develop and assemble.
The order they were given was both simple and absolutely staggering. Quadruple the monthly output of these incredibly complex interceptors. And the timeline to do it? Just 180 days. Production lines, like the Patriot facility down in Arkansas, are being ordered to move to 24/7 operations, effective immediately. I mean, it is a colossal undertaking.
But here's the reality check that the CEOs delivered right back to the president. You can't just flip a switch and quadruple production of a flying supercomputer. The American industrial base, which for decades has been optimized for peacetime efficiency, is just not ready for this kind of surge. It turns out money isn't the primary obstacle here. The supply chain is.
And these are the specific choke points. China, seeing a massive opportunity, has withheld key exports of rare earth minerals, which are essential for the advanced electronics in these missiles. The supply chain for solid rocket motors, it's already under immense strain from supplying Ukraine, and on top of all that, each interceptor requires thousands of unique specialized components, from thermal batteries to the sophisticated seeker heads that guide them to their targets. You can't just buy this stuff off the shelf.
So, to solve this industrial nightmare and to, fund the war, the administration is turning to Congress. And this brings us to the financial side of the gamble, a massive $50 billion emergency supplemental budget request that is already causing an absolute firestorm on Capitol Hill.
Let's break down where this money is actually going, because it's not as simple as just buying more missiles. A huge chunk, 30%, is a direct subsidy to the defense industry. It's for building entirely new factories from the ground up, government-funded but contractor-operated, just to meet this new demand. This is basically an attempt to rebuild the entire American defense industrial base on the fly. And this insane cost disparity is exactly why that industrial base is so critical. It's also the core argument from critics of the spending bill. You see, for every single dollar Iran spends to launch a drone, the United States is being forced to spend $100 to defend against it. If this conflict drags on, that's an economic death spiral. But the administration has a powerful counter-argument, and it's one that's pretty hard to ignore. The cost of the interceptor, whether it's $2 million or $10 million, is ultimately irrelevant when you compare it to the value of the asset it's protecting. You simply cannot let a cheap drone take out a $13 billion aircraft carrier and its crew of 5,000 sailors. From that perspective, any cost is justified.
However, there's a terrifying little footnote attached to that $50 billion request. At the current burn rate, which is over $1 billion per day, that massive pile of money will only last for about 35 days. Think about that. This isn't funding for a long war. This is the financial fuel for a short, violent, and decisive strike designed to end this thing, and end it quickly.
So now, we have to zoom out from the battlefield and the halls of Washington. Because the real battlefield, it might not be in the skies over Iran at all. It might be in the global supply chains that keep our entire world running. What started as a regional war is rapidly spiraling into a worldwide crisis. The Strait of Hormuz, the choke point where a fifth of the world's oil flows, is now effectively closed. Look, this isn't just a shipping lane. It's the planet's economic jugular vein. Between Iranian naval mines and U.S. blockade operations, maritime insurance has become impossible to get. Nothing is moving in or out, and the global economy is holding its breath. And for a key American partner, India, the situation is already catastrophic. Nearly half of their natural gas comes from Qatar, and every single shipment has to pass through that now closed strait. So Qatargas has declared force majeure. That's a legal clause for an act of war, which frees them from their contracts. This means India, a nation of 1.4 billion people, is staring down the barrel of imminent energy rationing and a potential economic collapse.
This diplomatic and economic disaster is now forcing the U.S. Treasury to consider something that was, until just last week, completely unthinkable. To stabilize the global energy market and prevent allies like India from collapsing, they are reportedly looking at lifting some sanctions on Russian oil.
Just let the profound, tangled irony of this sink in for a moment. To win a war against Iran, the United States may have to financially reward Russia, the very country that has been supplying and supporting Iran's military and its drone program. The U.S. might have to fund its enemy's primary ally just to keep its own war effort afloat. This is the paradoxical nightmare of 2026 geopolitics. This leaves us at a critical tipping point. The entire fate of this conflict, and maybe the next decade of American foreign policy, it all hinges on a single question. Can this industrial surge actually work? If it does, America might just overwhelm Iran into collapse. But if the production of interceptors can't keep pace with the drone swarm, we face a future where the U.S. has all the money in the world, but no missiles left to buy.
Which leads us to the final, crucial question we have to ask. Has the United States, despite all its overwhelming power, been lured into a perfectly designed attrition trap? A trap where its most expensive, most sophisticated weapons are bled dry by an enemy using cheap, disposable, and endlessly replaceable technology. The answer to that question will define not just this war, but the very future of warfare itself.
This whole conflict is evolving by the hour, and you can bet we'll be tracking that $50 billion supplemental bill as it moves through Congress. Make sure you subscribe for the latest updates on this developing story. And hey, be sure to watch the deep dive explainer on the future of drone warfare that's now up on your screen.